Hello everyone and welcome to the Breaking Barriers Refugee Week webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Our event will begin shortly, but at the end of our panel discussions, we're going to have a Q&A. So please do submit all of your questions throughout the webinar and discussions on the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll put these questions to our panel. Now I'm going to hand you over to our chair, who'll take us through these panel discussions. Thank you, Barbara.
Jessica, thank you very much and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here, especially as we all celebrate Refugee Week and as we use this webinar to mark the work of breaking barriers, especially in bringing businesses together in a common goal. So let me introduce myself properly. My name is Barbara Serah. I've been a journalist for 20 plus years, both in international news and domestic news as well. Now in international news, I worked for a long time at Aljezirah English, where we very much focused on the issues that I guess create refugees and cause a lot of people to have to leave their country, whether those issues are political, conflict, or unfortunately, increasingly climate, or often a combination of all three. And then I've often worked in both domestic news here in the UK and in my native country, Italy, where I have seen, I guess, the issues both, unfortunately, not by all journalists, but by some journalists, issues often be misrepresented and thus be weaponized by certain politicians. So that's why it's a real pleasure for me to be part of this webinar and to find out more about the work of Breaking Barriers and of course the work that all of the partners with the clients do with Breaking Barriers, practical and effective help, and as the title of the webinar says, to unlock refugee potential. So that's me. It's great to be here. Let me just talk you through some of the panelists, or all the panelists that will be with us today. So Matt Powell, CEO of Breaking Barriers. Nazifa Haqpal, previous Breaking Barriers client. She's going to tell us a little bit about her story. It's fascinating. I was talking to her a little bit yesterday about it. Then Emily Johnson, Director of Corporate Responsibility for Europe and the Commonwealth of Independent States for Cummins. Nicole Levitt, Responsibility Program Director at Burberry. Mareen, Head of CSR and Pro Bono at Mayer Brown, and Jonathan Freeman, CEO of CareTech Charitable Foundation. So those are our panelists. We'll be hearing from all of them in the next hour. So let's start then by hearing from both Matt and Nazifa, and there they are. Matt, if I can start with you, obviously as CEO of Breaking Barriers, give us a little bit of an overview about the current situation and challenges for refugees in the UK finding employment, when we all know that in the UK, of course, the issue, I mean, I was talking about before, is very much in the headlines.
Absolutely. Thanks, Barbara, and thank you everyone for joining us. So in terms of the specific barriers refugees face, I think they are the same barriers that many immigrants face to the UK, and I'm sure people can imagine what they are: lack of UK work experience, lack of understanding of the UK labour market, maybe English language levels are slightly poorer. But refugees face additional barriers on top of those that are created by the nature of our asylum system. So the asylum system is that period that you go through before you get refugee status. There's obviously been a lot in the news at the moment in terms of the Rwanda scheme. So essentially people that would be going through the asylum process are the same people that would be eligible, some of whom would be eligible to be sent to Rwanda. Now that period is particularly lengthy, and it's a period that you're unable to work. So I've seen someone who's been through that process for 25 years, and it's months and years, not days and weeks. So I'm sure everyone can understand not just the psychological impact of that, but also the practical impacts of finding a job if you've got a 25-year gap on your CV on top of everything else. So that's quite a specific and unique challenge that refugees face, which is why I think the private sector has such a key part to play in overcoming it, which I will talk a bit more about later. But then using the current situation of Ukraine and Afghanistan, because obviously that's brought the issue of refugees to a lot of people's attention. Where you come from and how you arrive in the UK can create further barriers. So Afghans, for example, we will all have seen the kind of horrific evacuation that happened in August last year, and people were put into temporary hotels in the UK. Well, the majority of them are still there, nearly a year on, And we've had a steer from the Home Office that it's likely to be another 6 to 12 months before those people find permanent housing. So that becomes a real challenge and barrier for people finding jobs. Similarly with Ukrainians, as I'm sure people are aware, they are predominantly being housed in people's spare rooms. So very generous hosts have opened their homes, but because of the same challenges in finding permanent accommodation, those Ukrainians are probably going to take 12 to 18 months to be in a position where they're really looking for work because they've got their accommodation sorted. So through a variety of different factors, the nature of being an immigrant, the nature of the asylum system, and then specific evacuation routes such as the Afghans and Ukrainians experience that create a whole host of different challenges that refugees face.
Thank you for that. And Nazifa, if we can come to you, I mean, sometimes it's easy to forget. I say that, sometimes in the media narrative, it's easy to forget that when we talk about refugees, actually, it's just a sum of individual stories of individuals who face their own specific difficulties. So tell us a little bit about your story and also, I guess, your experience of what it was like coming to the UK and trying to find employment. I think you're muted. There we go.
Sorry. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for having me. So I think that my experience of finding job or facing challenges are very similar to other refugees. I came to UK. Maybe I was one of those fortunate refugees that I posted as a diplomat here, and I worked as a diplomat. And then when I found difficult to return back to Afghanistan, and so I decided to start working here in the UK. But then the challenges that I was facing is Matt mentioned about like the processes of Home Office process of visa and asylum, and it took me a while, and that created a gap in my CV. But at the same time, when applying to the jobs, it was without a clear guidance, like coming from a country which is, of course, very different, especially in terms of job market, and the private sector is very different to there. And I would expecting that I will find again a civil servant job here, while you would see that like working back here for the UK government, you should have a nationality that it would take me like another 5 or 10 years to get that. So I felt hopeless that, okay, so there is not any opportunity for me to get back to the job market, while I had transferable skills that I could use into get into different sector. And so that was one of the challenges that I was facing. And at the same time, because I was working at the Afghanistan embassy and I was in contact with many Afghan diaspora here, and whenever I was listening to their experiences of finding job, they would also tell that, some of them were very qualified, even to be, as Matt mentioned, that of course there are one challenges are English language, but those that they have worked, for example, for international or for national organizations in Afghanistan or other countries, but when they gone through this asylum route, they were not able to bring, for example, a reference back from their employer, and because of security reasons, they couldn't contact back their country, or they lost the contact, or couldn't show the qualification that they got, but they had the skills and they could, but there was lack of trust from the employers in the job market that, okay, they are refugees that, okay, they haven't educated or haven't worked here in the UK system, and they will not be doing well. And I think one of the biggest challenge that I faced was, and I think it's really resonates with many refugees, is a gap into their employment, and as well as navigating and understanding that how they can utilize their potential in terms of job market. And for that, it's very important that we should have like NGOs or organizations or individuals to support and help refugees to get into employment.
Yeah, that gap in employment, I think, will probably keep on coming up. Matt, so tell us a little bit about what Breaking Barriers does to help refugee communities try to overcome, some of the challenges, for example, that Nazifa has just mentioned.
Absolutely. Well, our focus is unapologetically employment. So we are solely delivering employment and education support to refugees, and we work collaboratively with other organisations who address the other complex needs such as housing and welfare and immigration support that many refugees face. If we were to simplify our work, it falls into three general areas. One would be our one-to-one caseworking. So every person that we support would be matched with a caseworker, preferably with shared languages or shared culture where possible. And we provide intensive personalised support, supporting them with their short, medium and long-term goals, using volunteers as and when appropriate. Alongside that, we complement it with English and education classes. So that's anything from very entry-level English all the way to advanced business English and everything in between. And then the final element of it would be the work we do with our corporate partners. So how can we utilize their staff to use their expertise to deliver our elements of our work, as well as offering placements and job opportunities to get people within the business? How can we overcome that 10, 15, 20-year gap by getting someone their first piece of UK work experience? So those are the real three key elements of the work that we're doing.
And we'll focus on the third in just a minute, but Nazifa, I just wanted to ask you, what support was the most helpful to you? I mean, you mentioned that the employment gap was the biggest hurdle, but what was it that you found most helpful overall?
I think the design of the program of Breaking Barrier is very unique compared to other, I wouldn't say organization or services that I have also had kind of information and inquired about their in a community that I live. It's for example, Job Center and other organizations. So they would not allocate a very good amount of time, as well as researching their client's background and their need. So I think one of the important aspects that I found very helpful for me, that there were times that my employment advisor was guiding me according to my situation. That's okay. For example, I wanted to top up my skill. I had done my master's, but I thought that because of this gap into my employment and education, I want to go back to further study. And they supported my decision, but at the same time guided me. And I think this one-to-one services, and there are they would definitely guide someone which is with a different situation than mine. So it's not like a kind of general that a specific that will apply to all of their clients. So they are searching their clients' need, understanding them well. So for me, one of the important was their co-working with their partners organizations. For example, I have attended workshops and Grant Thornton and Mayor Brown's offices, and though it was technical in terms of CV, it was a workshop, but interacting with their employees and understanding their work culture, and understanding that they are willing to help, and there are opportunities that I or other refugees can get into employment in these organizations, that how prestigious they are, but they are opening up. So that gives me very much kind of motivation, inspiration to better and to do more, and to prepare myself into the UK job market. So I think it's a variety of programs that has been designed one-to-one, and as well as their cooperation and partnership with other organizations, for me was one of most important, and inspired me to go back, and I started to do more studying. And so I think, yeah.
Great, Nazifa, thank you. So Matt, I guess the question then is, what role do you think the businesses can play in these solutions?
I think businesses have to be involved in the integration of refugees. I keep coming back to the gap on the CV created by the asylum process. That's very, very difficult to articulate and justify in a CV or traditional recruitment processes. So developing relationships and bespoke pathways with businesses is critical. If you're a extremely well qualified lawyer from your country of origin, you come to the UK, you've got a 5-10 year gap on your CV. If your aspiration is to requalify as a lawyer, it's going to be very, very difficult. So partnering with organizations like Mayor Brown, who's speaking later, who can create bespoke paralegal placements that get people that first piece of relevant UK work experience that sets them on that path, I think is absolutely vital. I think as much as we think about it as businesses being part of the solution for refugees, I also like to think that refugees can be part of the solution for businesses. And I think one of the things that we look to do with any organization that we work with is develop mutually beneficial relationships. So whether it be engaging employees, helping with diversity and inclusion agendas, filling skills gaps, there is also a huge amount of added value that refugees have for businesses. So I think it's not just that businesses play a critical role. I think refugees can play a really critical role for businesses as well.
So Nazifa, following on from that point about the added value that refugees can bring, and just more generally, what advice would you give to the businesses listening today who want to support and hire refugees? What would you say?
I would say that first, it's important that we should understand the situation of refugees, especially in terms of they would not have the right kind of references available. For example, they would not have, there are organizations that I have encountered myself that when I showed my BRP, they would not understand what it is. So I think like familiarizing that when they are granted or when an asylum, or when they have these documents, that they have right to work, there is not a legal or technical problem in terms of their right. And to do that, it's also important that they should more engaged with organizations that they are expert on refugees, for example, like Breaking Barrier or other organizations. So then if they have any kind of concern in terms of technicalities, in terms of many other issues, because of course, like I've been working in this organization now for just like a few days, but I understood that how much, like when I had a chat with any of the employees, they would have come, like they have studied even like at master level migration studies, or they have kind of more not only information technically, but also very much interested into understanding more psychological, social and cultural need of refugees. So I think if there are any kind of, but most importantly, beside that, I would suggest that like creating more job placement would be one of the important and very pragmatic way of helping refugees, because when they are lacking experience or of UK experience, and if the organizations or these partners, they cannot provide like job or vacancies or employment opportunities, but like 6 months or 3 months employment will help these refugees that in their CVs, the name of these partners organization will appear and they will have a reference. And this will unlock their potential of employment. And it's a huge and very important aspect of getting them into employment.
Nazifa, thank you very much for that and for Matt as well. I'm sure I know we'll hear from both of you again when we get to the Q&A session of this panel. Now I'm delighted to hear from Emily Johnson, Director of Corporate Responsibility for Europe at Cummins, and Nicole Levitt, Responsibility Program Director at Burberry, to share their insight on their response to supporting refugees in the UK and their partnership with Breaking Barriers, in particular the key elements that we've been hearing of employability that support refugees into work. Now, actually, both companies, Cummins and Burberry, have started working with Breaking Barriers in the last year. Now, you're both from, I guess, very different businesses, but a common goal to support refugees. So, Emily, if we can start with you. I mean, the question to both of you is what motivated your business to support refugees and how you approached the response. So, Emily, tell us about what this has meant for Cummins.
Thanks, Barbara. And it's really an honor to be on the panel with such wonderful and diverse companies. And to your point, Barbara, for those of you who may not know Cummins, we're a global power technology company. So we have about 70,000 employees across the globe, and 8,000 of them are based in Europe and over 4,500 in the UK. And so a huge part of our belief as a business is that our business is only as strong as the communities where we're doing business. And we've been really engaged in social justice in our 100-year history, and our European employees have told us for years now that supporting refugees and migrants in our communities is something that they're really passionate about and where they see a huge need. So we were motivated largely by the need of our communities and what we saw our communities asking for and what our employees care deeply about. We always seek to work with experienced partners, and so we were really privileged to learn of Breaking Barriers through Mayor Brown, and that's what I love about this business network, is that we can teach each other about partners that are doing great work. I also think, to Matt's point, we're motivated in part because we know this is what the community needs, and we want to be a great partner, and our employees want to volunteer. We want to provide grants where we can, but we also know that refugees would be a huge benefit to our business. We know they bring a tremendous skill set, great background, and as a global employer, we need the language, we need the experience, we need the resilience. And we learn from each other. So it's been both motivated by community need, by our employee passion, and by finding amazing partners like Breaking Barriers who can help us.
Emily, thank you. Nicole, I guess same point to you, Burberry as well, joining in the past few months. So why?
Yeah, like Emily, we have a very strong brand. So Burberry, for those that you don't know, is a global luxury fashion brand, and it's over 165 years. And it was founded by Thomas Burberry, who was really instrumental in being a very strong philanthropist and really cared for its communities. And that kind of sentiment or philosophy kind of lives through our brand and through our CSR strategy. So we kind of look at this in multiple some ways. So we have a focused kind of CSR agenda that looks at very long-term initiatives through our Burberry Foundation. And we have partnerships in place all around the world where we've been working quite a long time with displaced people and migrant communities, because actually a lot of our supply chain are based in areas where you actually have a lot of migrant communities, and we've been working over a 5-year program in Italy, working with some of our finished goods vendors and tanneries there, and also with some social enterprises where we give some of our offcuts so that they can actually make products from that and sell them on. And through those mechanisms, they actually recruit and support that vital gap that I've been hearing in terms of what do you do when you have no identification, and what are what are the support systems that are needed that give people an opportunity to kind of build those employability skills. So we've been doing a number of programs like that. And in Afghanistan, we also had a very long-term initiative building a kind of inclusive and sustainable cashmere industry, because Afghanistan is quite a big country for cashmere. And it was coming to its natural end anyway when the Afghanistan crisis happened, but we really felt like we wanted to make sure that we were supporting beyond just that program. So we also support through a number of humanitarian relief needs, as you would have seen through the COVID times, when we're actually being supercharging our manufacturing presence to develop and produce PPE, which we have donated all across to kind of various kind of humanitarian efforts, and more recently through Ukraine efforts as well. We've been supporting some of those immediate needs. And I think there is that kind of balance between what can we do to support those kind of immediate needs when the crisis is acute, and in terms of also taking a step back to say, actually, what can we do to support and enable a long-term approach that actually helps those displaced people to have a better chance of a long-term kind of prosperity in the kind of places where they end up. So yeah, like Emily, this is something that we've been doing for a while, and but there is so much more that we need to learn in this space.
So Nicole, if I can just stay with you and then I'll go back to Emily. So again, looking forward, what do you hope to achieve this year with your partnership with Breaking Barriers? Because I understand, what do Burberry have in store? You've got something specific there, don't you?
Yeah, so we've been working with Breaking Barriers since the Afghanistan crisis, and we've got a one-year partnership that I hope will continue to grow. And it's coming back to what Matt said, there's stuff that we can identify in terms of what is it that Burberry can provide? What are our strengths as an organization where we can actually do now? And then over the long term, what can we actually grow and understand and really focus on for a longer term kind of partnership going forward. So looking back to what we can do now, we have obviously we have a lot of unused clothes that we can provide to support those employment opportunities. So we do donate a lot of our excess finished goods to organizations to support employability programs. We've also gifted a number of kind of laptops that actually help for those people that really don't have those assets, and those are pretty key if you're looking for a job, and also trying to build up those credentials and language skills and all the rest. And also, what do we do as an organization that can help support building those employability skills? So we've just hosted a luxury customer service workshop in our Regent store, which is one of our flagship. And it's those sorts of things that are, that I think that are easy, they're bread and butter stuff. But in terms of where we can actually gain some insights to actually help out, to inform the processes going forward, I think we need to learn a lot more. We're having some awareness sessions internally in terms of, Breaking Barriers is such a great name for what it is, because it's breaking those perceptions around refugees and what people think when they hear the word refugee or displaced person and they've already formed an opinion. What can we do to actually create awareness around the value and the opportunities to learn from this whole kind of audience group, and how can we make it better? How can we set people up for success in our industry and bring and demonstrate the kind of talent pathways into our industry? How can we make it easier for people to navigate and kind of look for opportunities within our sector as well? So do think that, those are the conversations that we need to have, and they're the ones that we actually take a little bit more time to develop. But, we can get started on the other stuff and then continue that kind of dialogue to actually make sure that we're learning and that mutually beneficial kind of relationship is where we need to be.
Nicole, thank you. And Emily, back to you. Tell us a little bit then about the future plans that Cummins have.
Yeah, I think like Burberry, we're also working to learn. I think there's three things we're really trying to do: learn, support, and hire. So we recognize that we have a ton to learn in this space, and Breaking Barriers has been an incredible partner, both in terms of allowing our volunteers to learn by conducting workshops, getting to know Breaking Barriers clients. A lot of what we've been trying to help with is we have, as a US multinational, we have a very soft skills based interview process that asks a lot of values based questions. And so we want to make sure that clients that come from refugee background are set up to be successful in our process. And so Breaking Barriers has been a wonderful partner in helping us conduct workshops to help the clients. I think in terms of support, Breaking Barriers is doing some amazing programming, and we have a wonderful foundation. And we've been fortunate to be able to support their First Steps program, which is really focused on clients with little or no work experience in the UK, and helping those clients be successful with education and employment. And then our ultimate goal is to hire and to be an employer of choice for people from refugee background. And we recognize that as a big challenge, and Breaking Barriers helped us manage expectations really early in this process. And we've been iterating and learning. We started with apprenticeship opportunities. We've moved through our legal team, through our HR team, and we've been really fortunate to have senior leadership support for this partnership. So HR within our organization is completely committed across Europe to hiring people from refugee background, which helps make my role really a lot easier, but also really committed to learning from partners like Breaking Barriers. And our goal is to be an employer of choice someday down the road, and also to share our successes and our failures so that we can come together to be more successful collectively as a business community.
Emily and Nicole, thank you both very much. Just a reminder to everyone that's joined us that you will be able to ask questions of all our panelists. I can see some questions are coming in already, so you will be able to do that, and we'll hear from all the panelists a little later on. So we've just heard from two companies that are quite recent partners of Breaking Barriers. Well, now we can hear from one that I think is one of its most long-standing partners, Mayor Brown and Mareen, Maleek, head of CSR and Pro Bono there, and going to share how you've been supporting Breaking Barriers refugee clients on work placements. So, you've been with them, I think, since 2016. So tell us a little bit about the partnership that you've had with Breaking Barriers and basically how you work together.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks everyone for having me. So we have been one of the longest standing partners with Breaking Barriers. I think it's been about 6 years, since 2016. So Mayor Brown is for those who don't know, it's a large international global law firm. It's headquartered in Chicago, but we have quite a large presence in the UK and Europe as well. And one of the things we've been we have a very strong active CSR and pro bono program. So refugee rights has been something we've supported for quite a while, but our main partner has always been Breaking Barriers. And this has come more to light after the crisis in Afghanistan and Ukraine. Mayor Brown also recently launched a project called Project Equity, which was sort of following in the wake of the tragic murder of George Floyd in the US. And, we thought to ourselves, what can we do in the UK to help promote social equality and look at social injustice? And one of the key areas we wanted to focus on, especially in the UK, was refugee rights. And then Breaking Barriers just felt like the best fit. So they're part of our Project Equity network as well. One of the main things that we do with them, mentioned, is the Breaking Barriers Academy placements. And these are basically, they're 6 months paid work placements, and the roles are ring-fenced for the Breaking Barriers clients. These are very similar to what we run for our paralegal or our trainee roles within the firm. So we would have someone, we'd get a CV from Breaking Barriers. We would look at the CVs, we would shortlist probably maybe 2 to 3 CVs, and then have a regular interview process, the exact same way we do it with hiring a trainee or a paralegal in the firm. And our trainees rotate for sort of 6 months between seats. When I say seats, I mean sort of different areas within the firm. So we do the exact same thing through Breaking Barriers Academy with the Breaking Barriers clients, where we have a client come and spend time at Mayor Brown for 6 months in various departments within the firm. Most recently, we had someone in the corporate team and in the finance team as well. So these have been really successful, but that's kind of one of our main aims, is to really look at these academy placements and help people sort of get back into the workforce or get real life work experience in the UK. The other thing that we partnered up with Breaking Barriers recently has been to join their Fuse network. And this was a great opportunity for us as well, because Fuse was really working with like-minded businesses, similar to the goals that Mayor Brown shares, to really share and get together and talk about best practices and really how we can support refugees, how we can support Breaking Barriers. And I know Fuse, it's been really active recently, and it really exists to unite businesses. And businesses such as Cummins and Grant Thornton, where we share common goals to really improve lives of refugees and get them into more meaningful and sustainable employment.
And tell us a little bit about some of the unexpected challenges, I guess, and also value that you've seen in business by supporting refugees and working with Breaking Barriers, especially because, you can give us an overview of 6 years. So how that's maybe changed over the years as well.
Yeah, so we've actually delivered about, I think 9 academy placements so far. So we've done quite a lot, had quite a lot of experiences, both wins and losses, advantages, disadvantages, challenges, there's lots of value add as well. I think in terms of some of the challenges we've had is really sort of being able to find the right role and the right fit within the organization. We've had such fabulous CVs come in. When we look at these CVs, we have people who are so qualified. Many times you'll have a candidate who's done an LLM. And really sort of working towards, their very unique skill set and the amazing experiences that they bring, making sure they find the right role within Mayer Brown, because these are sort of paralegal or trainee placements. So really, I think making sure you have the right team, the right role, the right Breaking Barriers client coming into the right department at Mayer Brown, making sure that we work really closely with Breaking Barriers to also support the clients, making sure that we constantly check back, making sure we work with the partners within the law firm or the line manager within the department. What we try to do to make sure that goes as seamlessly as possible is have constant reviews. So we have a review at 1 month, we have a review at 3 months, we have a review at 6 months. And I think really important to have, communication and open dialogue, make it a safe space for a Breaking Barriers client to say, this is working for me, or this is not working for me, or I've really enjoyed doing this particular piece of work. I'd like to learn more about this particular area. So I think communication, constantly checking in, making sure everyone is comfortable, and really making sure when you start that initial process that it's the right role for the right client at that time. I think, also just having time to sort of really invest in the support systems that we have within the firm. So we have a lot of skills courses that we do throughout the year and throughout those 6-month placements that we have with the Breaking Barriers clients. And these just might be sort of general skills sessions that we have, for example, in a corporate role or a finance role, but making sure that everyone has access to these skills sessions. So yeah, I think just really being sensitive that providing that support really and checking back in throughout.
Mareen from Mayer Brown, for the moment, Mareen, thank you. And again, just a note to everyone, you will be able to ask questions later. We've now reached our final panelist to join us, and that's Jonathan Freeman from the CareTech Foundation to share how their newly launched partnership with Breaking Barriers is going to make an impact for the health and social care sector. So Jonathan, good to see you. Tell us a little bit, you launched your 2-year partnership with Breaking Barriers. Why was it so important for CareTech to you to launch this new partnership, and I guess to launch it now?
Good afternoon, Barbara, and to everyone else. Look, firstly, thank you very much for this opportunity, because this is a really exciting project for us, and it started off quite simply. So the CareTech Foundation is the corporate foundation of CareTech PLC, which is a large private sector provider of specialist social care and education. And it started off from a conversation with trustees about how could we support refugees at that point, particularly around those from Afghanistan. And of course, now that's broadened out and saying, well, yeah, grant funding is always fabulous because that's what we do. But actually, the most important asset that we can tap into is the employment opportunities of our parent company that employs something like 12,000 staff. And we're at the heart of the social care system, dealing with people with special educational needs and learning disabilities. And in the social care sector, there are something like 120,000 vacancies, employment vacancies, a huge skills gap, a massive need. So we've been working generally across the social care sector to say, how can we develop alternative pathways? How can we tell people about the incredible careers that there are in social care? And this seemed to us, frankly, a no-brainer. Lots of companies, for very understandable reasons, are recruiting from overseas to fill those gaps. And we just went to them and said, yeah, great, but actually you've got a whole community of fabulous people on your doorstep, that if we can open the doors to the sector and help explain what the opportunities like, what the work can be like, they would make brilliant candidates. And so that's where we've started. And a really important point for us was, yes, as you've heard, lots of refugees have incredible qualification, can do all sorts of jobs, but there'll be others that don't. And whilst social care professionals are highly skilled, don't always need the qualifications that you might need for some other roles. But what you do need is empathy. What you do need is values, back to that point that Emily made earlier. And many refugees, sadly, from the traumatic situations they've often come from, will have that values, which means they will be brilliant in caring for others. The only other point I'd particularly highlight is it's the social care sector obviously cares for people from all backgrounds. And it's really, really important that we've got, professionals that can support people of all backgrounds. So if we can broaden that mix, make it a much more inclusive, diverse workforce, and this is an important element of that strategy.
Jonathan, before I ask my next question, let me just confirm that stat you gave. Is it 120,000 vacancies in social care? Did I get that right?
120,000 vacancies in social care. Not many people know that more people work in social care than in the NHS.
Okay.
It's, I think, I forgot exactly figure whether it's 2 or 5 times more work in social care than agriculture. It's a huge, huge sector. And this is an endemic problem. It's been going on for years because we've not really tackled that social care employment crisis.
Yeah. Well, so going back then, what is the CareTech Foundation hoping to achieve then with breaking barriers when it comes to, and that's the title of this webinar, really, the unlocking of refugee talent?
Yeah, so what we as a charity are trying to do is to support the broader care sector. So we're working with Breaking Barriers, say, let us create a social care employment pathway for refugees. We've started off working directly with the PLC, and we're now hoping to broaden that out across all sorts of other providers across social care from whatever background. I have to say, every time I talk about it, you can just see the light bulbs pinging across people's heads going, oh gosh, why didn't we even think about that? That's an obvious thing to do. It sounds a bit of a truism, but people in social care are caring people. And if they suddenly go, oh, hang on a second, we can help deal with our own business initiative, but do something that really is helping those people who need it. What a brilliant way to create it. It's just a very, very simple win-win. It taps lots of buttons we heard today. So that's our aim, is to open this incredible sector to a whole new potential workforce. And I'm delighted to say that we've had some really, really quick wins. And it's not been without difficulty. This is a highly regulated sector. So we have had a few people going, well, hang on a second, isn't this going to be a bit tricky? And what are the regulators going to say? And Matt and the team have been fantastic in working through with us, with the CareTech PLC HR teams, to try and just navigate our way through that. And it is one of those ones where actually, if the will's there, you can get through it really quite quickly.
Jonathan, thank you so much. Jonathan Freeman there from the CareTech Foundation. Thank you to all the panelists, really, for giving such an honest and insightful take on what your journey has been, whether it's been a short journey or a longer one when it comes to supporting refugees into employment. Okay, so we can go to the Q&A section now. Some questions already coming in. Do feel free to add to them. So the first question is to Nazifa. And Nazifa, the question to you is, can you tell us what you're most looking forward to about working at Breaking Barriers? Because of course you've just started working there, and then in March it says congratulations on the new roles. So congratulations, and what are you most looking forward to about working at Breaking Barriers?
Thank you, Barbara. I think it's very important question, and it's one of the reasons that when I had the interviews, I was explaining that why I'm interested at this particular period of time to get into a sector which is very important, that what we are seeing today and how the crisis of refugees are unfolding, not only with the Ukraine, but also with Afghanistan and many other issues in terms of like migration and refugees, both, I would say. So for me, it's very important that I am looking forward to help refugees into employment, because I have gone through this route myself, and I feel that it's not one way or it's not kind of just helping refugees, but it's a broader perspective, if I can see it. It's helping the society, because these refugees, if they don't get into employment, there would be like wider implication to our societies in terms of their well-being, in terms of and they have potential, as Jonathan exactly mentioned about the social sector, that there are needs that to be filled, and with little support or with the precise and technical support that we will put in terms of working in cooperation, or in terms of like technical support, or even psychological, or showing them empathy, that we are that there are organizations, there are people that in this country they are welcoming, and they are valuing their skill and their potential, and there is a need that they can contribute. So it's for me that you give them not only financially, you help them, but you help them in terms of like giving them the sense of respect, dignity, and it's like helping not only a refugee, but helping a generation, because they have family, they can be a role model to their own family and children, and the way that they are resilient, and they have showed that when they have like started a very difficult journey, like leaving their very existence and everything behind in terms of like their country, their career, their professions, in order to seek safety and security. So I think it's a kind of moral obligation. It's also it's actually like social justice. It's also actually like I see the implication of this very much deeply into our society, but as well as back to their own societies. They're helping their own societies. They're helping their own societies in terms of not only economically, but also in many other ways that they have. For example, I will give a very I myself, coming from a country or a background from Afghanistan, there are Afghans that they are successfully working in these sectors, different sectors in the UK, but they are helping their extended family in terms of showing them that supporting their tuition fees, supporting them into like education, and as well as morally. So I think it's the help is beyond like explanation, and it's very hard to talk about it in a few words or a few sentences or a few minutes.
Nazifa, thank you for that. Okay, there's a question from Julian to Mareen. Mareen, thank you for your explanation. Have you experienced placements that have not worked? And if so, how have you helped the person move on? So Mareen, have you had any experience of placements that didn't work for whatever reason?
Fortunately not, but I think one of the reasons for that has been, as I mentioned, is that constant sort of communication and check-in. So the 1 month, the 3 month, and the 6 months check-in that we do. But, you know, of course, there have been teething problems, and it would be similar to any role at a law firm or a paralegal or trainee joining the firm. I mean, when I started as a paralegal trainee, I had difficulty getting just adjusted and used to the way the system and Mayor Brown works. Yeah, we haven't really had any difficult stories like that. But again, it's a communication and making sure that people are comfortable, opening all channels of communication, finding the right line manager. But I think you know, the benefit of, regardless of when you do this placement, is that, you know, to have a firm like Mayer Brown on your CV, you know, as Matt said, to fill in that gap in your CV, to have that real world practical experience on your CV, it's a really great thing, because it really is a sort of a springboard, and it opens up many doors for you afterwards. You know, just to have that name on your CV, really, and to have that 6-month experience. And we've had people go on to do really brilliant and exciting things. You know, I'm constantly in touch with the Breaking Barriers team, and they update me. And so we found out recently that, you know, one of our Breaking Barriers clients has gone on to do data analysis at a fintech company. So it opens up a lot of doors for you. And, you know, we try our best during that 6-month placement to make sure that any problems are heard, and we try to address them before, you know, the next meeting that we have in the next few months. But yeah, but I would, you know, encourage everyone to do it, just because even just getting that experience, getting that, you know, under your belt, getting that on your CV, it really is a springboard. It opens up so many doors for you.
Mareen, thank you for that. Okay, other question. This one is for Nicole from Noella, but then I think I'm going to open that same question to Jonathan and Emily too, if that's okay, so everyone has a chance to speak, because we're going to have to wrap up quite soon. So the question for Nicole is, where would you suggest that a business brand new to Breaking Barriers would start in terms of practical steps? Nicole, what would you say?
Well, it's a great question. And I'd have to say that the starting point of any relationship that you have with your charity partner is to really understand in terms of what the needs are, in terms of what is it that what do they need, and then in terms of looking retrospectively at yourself to actually say, what can we give? And it's not only just of course, the cash donation is vitally important. It goes towards sustaining those programs that they have in place, and they're really important. But what else can we do to actually leverage those relationships with the assets that we have? And the biggest asset we have, or the assets that we have, is in terms of the people that we have access to, in terms of can we support through our own people, in terms of going out there and supporting any kind of volunteering, any employability, skills training, opening up opportunities into our business to understand the career pathways, but equally in terms of how can we open up our own business in terms of our HR colleagues to really map out those longer term recruitment pathways into our industry. So there's something for everyone in terms of being able to kind of support breaking barriers or programs of this nature, but it's identifying in terms of what you have and what they need, and then coming up with a clear kind of plan. You can't do everything, so you know, in terms of just focusing on those few things that you can get off the ground and get moving on.
Nicole, thank you. Emily, same point to you. Where would you suggest a business brand new to Breaking Barriers would start?
I think Nicole summarized it brilliantly, but I'd just add, I think setting really small, achievable goals through the partnership. So one of our initial goals was to hire 1 to 2 people from refugee background within a 6 to 9 month period, which might sound really small and easily achievable, but actually was a huge learning process for us, and took a lot of partnership and trust building with Breaking Barriers, and a lot of iterating on our part. So, and don't be afraid to make mistakes would be my only other piece of advice. I think inevitably we get pieces wrong, we learn, and then we move forward. So take a risk.
Oh, always good advice regarding everything. Jonathan, I guess to you, if you have anything to add to that point, or anything else that you heard.
I mean, all of the above. For us, finding someone in the business that was going to take personal responsibility, we got it all signed off at the senior level, but then having, in our case, 2 people who say, right, we'll work directly with Breaking Barriers. We're going to work through both, to understand the differences, and that means we're going to have to be flexible. So let's just, we've made some changes to the application process to make it much quicker than it is normally, just because we needed to make it work. But then for those 2 individuals in the recruitment team taking personal responsibility for clearing some of the inevitable blockages out of the way. And I think we had some quick wins. I mean, Emily, I completely agree, small steps, but we were thrilled. Within, I think, almost a matter of weeks, we've got 2 people who are today working for CareTech, thanks to Breaking Barriers, and to get that breakthrough that quickly is fantastic. And we know we can build on that, and we've got more that we just wait to do the last bit of paperwork, and they'll be joining the assembled ranks of CareTech.
Jonathan, thank you, and thank you to all the panelists. That's it for me. I want to say a personal thank you. It's been really inspirational to hear about all your experiences, and I have to say, as a journalist, you know, the way that you laid out, it's such a win-win situation so often that, that it's inspirational and an optimistic note in a debate that sometimes can be a bit toxic outside. So that is all from me. Thank you very much. And now I hand over to Matt.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks to all of the panelists for all of their inputs there, and for everyone joining us. I'll just say a few very quick words to close the session. So over the last 7 years, I must have spoken to hundreds of businesses and hundreds of individuals, and by far the most common phrase I've heard is, I want to help, but I don't know how to help. And I think I've probably heard that in the last 6 or 7 months with Afghanistan and Ukraine, and at any other period since Breaking Barriers was started. And I really hope the session today has inspired people, but also shown that regardless of the nature of your business, the sector you're in, the size of the organization, there are tangible steps that you can take to support refugees. So I would really encourage any organization who is interested in supporting us, regardless of where you are in your journey, to reach out. The second element is Ukraine and Afghanistan. And I think although the issue and the cause is so much bigger than those two countries, both crises over the last year has really brought the refugee crisis in the UK to the public's attention. And I've also spoken to a few businesses over the last few weeks who feel like they've missed out or missed the boat on the response to both crises. Well, for the reasons that I outlined at the beginning, in terms of the challenges that many Ukrainians and Afghans are going to face in terms of finding stable housing before they're ready to look for a job, it's only really going to be over the next 6 to 12 months that the majority of Ukrainians and Afghans start accessing our services. So I would really say to those organizations that for us as an organization, the crisis hasn't really started. So please do reach out if you are looking at your Ukraine and Afghan responses about how we can work with you to do that. So just a few tangible takeaways. We are looking for more organizations and their employees to help deliver our programs. We rely on their expertise and time. So please do reach out if you believe that your employees would be interested in delivering elements of our work. And then work placements and bespoke recruitment pathways. We had lots of great examples today of successful relationships we've developed with businesses, and we are always looking for more organizations who are prepared to open their doors to refugees. So please do reach out to myself or a member of the team if you are interested in exploring how you can hire refugees. So that's everything from us. A huge thank you to Barbara and the panelists again. We really appreciate the support and look forward to hearing from everyone in the future. Thank you.